Welcome back to the SBK Betting Podcast, where we are still thinking back fondly from that Newmarket and the Guineas weekend, and it was a successful weekend for this podcast. I hope you listened this time last week, and I hope you joined in, especially from TC's betting and selection perspective. A sensational weekend, not just in the Guineas itself, TC, but also Probe was a double-figure price nap. But I have to say, we put up quite a comprehensive case for Chaldine. We thought that everything was in his favour, and it was pretty seamless. You put him up at 11-2, went off at 7-2, and then you obviously made a very good case for Tahira, who's touched off in the 1,000 guineas. But Chaldine, as mentioned, straightforward. A lot of the lead horses that were fancy just never showed up, and he was the one that made it look like a pretty seamless victory for him.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a great story as well with Frankie winning the 2,000 guineas in his final 2,000 guineas, supposedly. Both Aidan O'Brien horses had excuses, but Chaldean was the best horse in the race anyway. He won decisively, and yeah, we got the value there. 11-2 went off 7-2. If I was to take a horse out of the race, though, I know plenty of people will focus on the first three, maybe. The Kevin Ryan horse to finish second, ran well at a big price. The Johnson horse as well that placed in the top four also ran well at a good price. But if I was to take a horse out of the race, it would be Sakir, because I thought he ran an exceptional trial for the Commonwealth Cup. He broke slowly. He took a keen hold. He was right out of the back early on in a race where it probably paid to be prominent, as you avoided all of the traffic issues that was happening back in the pack. He made a nice run towards the stand side between the 2 furlong marker and the 1 furlong marker before quite clearly failing to get the mile. I think the drop back to 6 furlongs will make him a very interesting prospect in the Commonwealth Cup.
Yeah, there are a couple of horses that similar profile, the likes of Noble Style, probably more of a 6 furlong horse as well. And it was a fact-finding mission, wasn't it, for plenty of them. But Chaldine looks out-and-out miler, Frankel's first Guineas winner as well. And it will be fascinating to see him, how he campaigns. But it's also, you know, the likes of August Rodin and Little Big Bear. Too bad to be true. August Rodin still at the top of the Derby market. I can't really buy it after that. It was just, it was disappointing for Ballydoyle. And then we went into the 1,000 guineas. And Ross, a filly that you really liked and early on in her career, Morge. I know that you put up as an anti-post selection for the 1,000 guineas. She's obviously developed into a really striking individual as a 3-year-old. I know lots of people said that she looked fabulous in the preliminaries, and her and Tahira pulled clear, but it was Morge that won, and you must have been thrilled with that anti-post bet landing, and also the fact that your selections in the 2,000 guineas Royal Scotsman ran brilliantly, considering he pulled so hard early on.
Yeah, it was a good weekend, and it's nice. Morge is just a filly I sort of got quite emotional with last year, and sort of followed her up and over the hill a couple of times, but she ran really well. I think Tahira lost nothing in defeat, and I wouldn't be at all confident that Morge would uphold that form going forward. I think the sort of sound bites out of Dermot Wells before the race were that he wasn't entirely convinced that Tahira was cherry ripe for it, whereas in contrast, Morge had been over to Meydan. She'd had 2 runs, so she was there, absolutely hard fit. It's hard to think there's going to be an awful lot of progression with her, whereas with Tahira, I think there's plenty more to come. And I think they'll probably dominate the Fillies Mile division this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wouldn't say there's huge amounts to take away from behind them, considering they pulled so far clear. But Tahira, wasn't there, so I didn't see her physically, but I still think that she's probably on the smaller side, but she might have just been outdone in the end by experience as well, which we were slightly concerned about. Only the 2 runs under her belt. Morge is pretty bomb-proof at this stage. But brilliant for Saibin Surah, Oisin Murphy back after that lengthy ban. And so, yeah, a lot of storylines on the weekend. But we move from a good weekend to another busy weekend of racing, and we've got the Victoria Cup as our focus. A classic sort of puzzle when it comes to handicaps at Ascot. It's down the straight 7 furlongs, and with the weather that it's been over the last week, couldn't believe that Salisbury was called off because of waterlogging. We come to Ascot with soft ground, but I'd like to hope that it's drying out just slightly as well. And this is always a bit of fun to try and work out, and we're looking at it with a field size of 23, so good competitive action at Ascot. And we'll start with this, TC. I'll come to you first. There's a horse in here, Kingdom Come, and I know you follow the all-weather scene like night and day over the winter period, and I'm really interested to see Kingdom Come come onto the turf, essentially. He's the horse that stands out to me in this race, but he's here against some seasoned handicappers, Baradar, who ran really well in the Lincoln. You got Fresh, who loves it at Ascot. You got last year's winner, Vafortino. So I just wondered what you thought about him, just quickly in the context of the rest of the race and how you boiled down your selection.
I think if there's a group performer in here, it probably is Kingdom Come. I like his draw. Clive Cox has done well in this race before, winning it with River Nymph back in 2021. There's a lot going for him. The negatives are he's only had 3 starts this year after a long break, and all 3 came on the all-weather. His only 2 turf starts were on good to firm and good ground. He's by Kingman, so he's got a good turn of foot. We've seen that, and Kingman horses' progeny do tend to have good acceleration. Maybe the soft ground will blunt that here. And he's also quite high up the market. So there are questions to answer for Kingdom Come. He's got the highest ceiling of any horse in the race, but I don't want to bet him at this price given the fact we've never seen him on this type of ground before.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I just think he could be very, very exciting, but he's definitely fragile. He's got his problems. So I think soft ground, they wouldn't want to run him on anything too fast because of his problems, but maybe he won't actually act on it. So he's an intriguing horse in the context of this race. So then is there a handicapper in here that you think has got to a certain right mark? Is it, it's quite early on in the season. There are a lot of trainers are still sort of finding their feet. Well, how did you come to find your selection?
Yeah, so I mentioned River Nymph there, and I actually backed him and tipped him when he won in 2021. The main reason for that was because I think high draw is crucial in this race, especially when the ground is on the soft side. They all seem to come across to the stand side, and if you're drawn low, you're out in the centre of the track, and then you can struggle to find cover, you struggle to follow the pace horses. It's just really difficult to win. Now, that's not saying anything in a single figure draw can't win, and I'm sure Ross is going to put up a couple in a second that could go close from a single figure berth, but at the same time, I think you've got to be really well handicapped or by far the best horse in the race to win from out there. So firstly, my main angle here is I'm tossing out any horse that is drawn 10 or lower in this race. As I say, it could be completely rubbish and we could see a low drawn horse win, but his history tells us we want high draws. Now, the market leader, Baradar, is drawn low. So, if you fancy that jolly, then you're going to have to overcome the historic bias. River Nymph, who's also drawn low, so I've got to throw him out. And I ended up siding with last year's winner, Vafortino. He, to me, just ticks far more boxes than any other horse in this race. And I genuinely cannot believe that he's not vying for favouritism. In my tissue, he's around 5-6 to 1. And right now you can get him at 10 to 1. About an hour ago, he was 12s, which is a phenomenal price. Now, he's a son of Nube. He started his career with Joseph O'Brien and ran very respectably in a couple of 3-year-old races, 2-year-old races, most notably on soft ground. So the conditions definitely won't hinder him on Saturday. Since he's moved from Kevin Phillipart to Foy's, he's won 2 of his 7 starts. This race last year off a mark of 97 and at Goodwood on good to soft ground, which again proved that he handles deep conditions. Now, he's gone up £6 in the weight since he won this race 12 months ago. However, if you take the RPR from his most recent effort at Newmarket, he is still chucked in off a mark of 103. Then you've got to add in the fact that Benoit Delasayette takes off £3. They're moving back to Ascot, where his best ever performance has come in terms of winning performance. He's got a great draw. I think everything is in Vafortino's favour, and I would genuinely be surprised if he doesn't go off 5, 6, 7 to 1.
Okay, and do you think, just looking at the race, you've got a lot of horses reopposing, the likes of Fresh. Do you think it's a better, stronger race than it was this time last year?
Yeah, I think it's a very similar race. We have the same kind of horses running again. Fresh, as you said, ran very respectably last year. River Nymph back in 3rd. Fresh was 4th. Vafortino again. But Vafortino has the most improvement to come. As I say, he's only had 7 starts for his trainer. The likes of Fresh we see every year. He's an Ascot specialist. He runs in all of these big field handicaps. Right now, he's the same price as Vafortino. But I just struggle to believe that he is capable of beating Vafortino off this mark. Fresh will be there or thereabouts, and he'll have his followers. He's sure to be strong in the market. But I just like Vafortino, I have to say, quite strongly as well.
Yeah, and obviously his trainer, David Manuzia, making a great start to the new season. Look, a very good case for him. I think this draw thing, Ross, we have to chat about it because my selection is below in these low numbers, and we'll find out if yours are. But let's just look. Last year, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th were all drawn 10 or higher, and you go back over the course of the last few years. 2021, River Nymph in draw 24, 2nd and 17, 3rd and 25, 4th and 14, 5th and 16, 6th and 23. You've got to go all the way back to the 8th place horse to get anything drawn lower than 10. And you can keep going back and trying to find, it's like a bit like trying to find a weather app and trying to find the weather that you like. It's not happening. Um, why would you even dare to go with a horse drawn essentially in the wrong part of the track?
Because I looked forward from this meeting last year, and particularly at Royal Ascot and then Ascot in the autumn, draw bias went out the window. Since then, they've had real problems with the jumps track. It's been exceptionally dry. I'm not prepared to put enough of my eggs in one basket that the draw bias that sort of got turned on its head at the back end of last year won't continue this year. Now, it could just be at this time of year with this amount of rainfall that TC is absolutely right and to follow those stats of high draws. But I'm going to try pretty hard this year not to let draw bias influence me particularly. I did it a couple of times last year and it didn't pay off too badly. So I just sort of threw it out the window and I've gone for horses that I think are like conditions, that are well weighted, well handicapped, suited by the trip. And you know, if you're wrong, you're wrong, and if you're right, you're going to get paid better than you should have done, because a lot of the market is going to be shaped by the draw. So the two I've come down on a Baradar from George Bowie's yard. I just don't think you can ignore anything that he targets at these Saturday handicaps. He is absolute mustard at it. Baradar just clearly didn't stay the mile trip on heavy ground in the Lincoln. I mean, a furlong and a half out, if you'd have backed him, you'd have been counting your money, because he was absolutely swinging along and then just didn't find, I think, as much as Kevin Stott perhaps expected him to find, and perhaps didn't find as quickly as Kevin Stott expected him to find either. So I think that experience for Kevin Stott will serve him well this time. I think the drop back to 7 furlongs on soft ground is absolutely tailor-made for him. He stays on the same mark of 97. I think he's got a lovely racing weight. And I think in soft ground, the lighter the weight you're carrying, I think that advantage can be exaggerated on softer ground than it can be on better ground. So I think he's got to be certainly on your short list. I take on board the draw is not ideal, but as I've already mentioned, I'm just going to put a line through that. And then I just wanted one at a bigger price as well. I thought David Manuzzia's other horse, actually, Tommy Sun. I mean, we'd all heard a bit of chat about him before his debut in this country this year, and he ran abysmally and didn't run an awful lot better last time. But I think he had traffic problems last time, which might have given him an excuse. Christian DeMuro is quite an interesting booking, but that was a bit too wild for me, or even me. So I've gone with Darkness, who gets in at the bottom of the weights, Andrea Azzini. I think he's the same. I think he just doesn't quite see out a mile. And I don't think he's quite quick enough over 7 furlongs on good ground. Excuse me. He's got his soft ground conditions. I liked how he finished off his race at Ascot. At Newmarket just 8 days ago. That's a bit of a concern, but I liked how he finished that race off. It's the first time I've seen him really run through the line for a while. The visor's retained. This softer ground is definitely going to suit him better. And I thought at a big price, he was just interesting if he can back that run up.
Okay, yeah, Darkness 33-1, and probably is that price because coming out of stall 3. As you say, you get a bit more value with it. And Baradar, interesting, patchy enough, that Lincoln form. So it's kind of working out. Some of it isn't. He's in stall 7, tongue-tied for the first time as well, you might have noticed.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to do any harm, is it? Particularly on soft ground. You know, if they catch their palate, they're going to do it more on soft ground than on better ground. And he is just a soft ground horse. So, yeah, I mean, it's typical George Bowie, just not leaving any stone unturned. And I've got huge respect for his operation.
Yeah, 6-1, and probably would have been shorter if he wasn't drawn in stall 7. But as you say, it could all change, and trends are there to be broken. But Baradar and Darkness for Ross, so a bit of a big each way price there at 33-1 with Darkness. David O'Meara, who's just excellent at these kind of horses, and Baradar, who's 6-1, and then we've got Vaffortino for TC at 10-1. I'm going to put up Rebel Territory. Actually beat Vaffortino last time out for the Amanda Perrett yard, who are actually quietly doing quite well at the early part of this season. Horses running quite nicely. I was saw another winner for them the other day. Say if you will, won again. He's been an absolute yard star at Kempton. I think they've just been they've got their horses in quite a good place. I don't think they've got masses of horses anymore. But Rebel Territory, another horse that really relishes giving the ground, was a winner at Newmarket last time out. Just seemed to be very, very much well in himself. And I think that, look, he's only gone up a couple of pounds. He's another horse that's drawn not brilliantly. But they clearly sort of mind him a little bit. He doesn't do a huge amount of racing, and hopefully this doesn't come too quickly for him. He seemingly goes quite well fresh, and I like his profile, and he's another one that would probably be shorter. Got 10-1 here. Wouldn't want him any shorter than that, considering where he's coming out of, out stall 2. But Jim Crowley back on board again. I like his chance in what is always a competitive field. So we've got something for everyone here, whatever angle you like to take for the Victoria Cup. Right, we'll head on into our naps and our next best, which landed pretty nicely last week. And we've got a mixed card at Haydock. This is perfect for you, Ross. Love a bit of mix action. Now you're getting so good at the flat stuff, but you got things like the Swinton Hurdle. So we'll go to you first, because your nap Caroline Street was a winner at 11-2 last week. So you can take it away for us.
Yeah, I was straight into Haydock and had one quick look at the Swinton Hurdle and thought that looked far too difficult. So I've actually stuck to the flat, and following a couple of horses I know quite well from their juvenile seasons. I spoke to Ed Bethel at the back end of last season, and he nominated James McHenry as a horse he really liked, but thought would step forward an awful lot with another winter behind him and back out as a 3-year-old. James McHenry runs in the 2:10 at Haydock. Ed Bethel was absolutely spot on. He took a giant step forward on his seasonal return at Redcar, won very comfortably in sort of quite stylish fashion. He is up £5, but I think this progressive young horse has got plenty more to give. I know the trainer thinks an awful lot of him, and I'd be disappointed if he couldn't land back-to-back wins. So he's the nap in the 2:10 at Haydock. And then later on in the card, the 4:25, a horse called Emperor Caradoc, who I sort of followed as a juvenile, and he just disappointed a couple of times, but there was undoubted ability there. Since he's gelded, he's taken a step forward. I think he just hasn't stayed the last 2 times, over a mile and a furlong and a half, and then a mile and a bit. He drops back to 7 furlongs on slightly better ground. I think that's going to suit him well. So in the 4:25, Emperor Caradoc is the next best.
Okay, yeah, Ed Bethel's, especially his 3-year-olds at the moment. I've just had a quick check. 29% strike rate at the moment with his 3-year-olds. He's had 10 winners from 34 runners. And there was a horse that he ran the other day, Elim, who bolts up at Musselburgh and looks very smart. And I think he's just got a really nice bunch of horses from that 3-year-old pool. So interested to see how James McHenry runs for you there, Ross, on his second start back as a 3-year-old. Okay, TC, I know that we would have had declarations for Lingfield, but because they've had to move to the all-weather, we're still waiting for them. But I know you'll have an eagle eye on them anyway. Is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing if they are declared, and where is your nap and next best coming from?
Well, yeah, Lingfield will be very interesting. As you say, we don't have declarations until Friday. We're filming this right now on Thursday afternoon. So, yeah, no tips there. But, you know, if you follow me on Twitter or whatever, if you see my articles on betting.getsbk.com, I'm sure there'll be a tip there from Lingfield for one of the trials. The nap and next best, yeah, we're not looking at a 12-1 nap this week, I have to say. I'd say it's more of a banker nap rather than a value play like Probe was 7 days ago. And the nap is going to be Creative Force in the 2:45 at Haydock. It's a 6 furlong conditions event. There are only 4 runners. He probably won't be much for a price. Anything around evens 4 to 5, I think, is very fair. You generally need to run to a mark in the high 100s, low 110s to win a conditions race, including this one, if you look back through the last 10 years. And Creative Force is well capable of performing to 120. He's by far the best horse in the race. He's a Group 1 caliber performer if he's at his best. And yes, last time out he lost. He finished 3rd at a short price at Newmarket. Second that day was Comanche Falls. He reopposes. I don't think he's going to confirm that form. I think Creative Force was the better horse of the 2 in that race. He came stand side. I was there that day. He came stand side. Nothing took him into the race. Far side was a much better place to be. It was also his first run of the season. I think Creative Force ran the better race than Comanche Falls, and I think he'll definitely come on more than Comanche Falls for that performance. I fully expect him to win. Prior to that run, by the way, last time at Newmarket, he ran in 7 straight Group 1s, winning one of them, placing in 3 others. So yeah, I'll be extremely disappointed if he loses. And then one at a slightly bigger price, the next best. It's going to be Mr. Bluebird in the 4:55 at Ascot. And it's a very similar case to Vafortino. He won this race last year, like Vafortino won the Victoria Cup last year. And Mr. Bluebird looks like he's been very much aimed at this event again. Billy Loughnane takes the ride, which I think is a huge plus. Heather Main doesn't really have that many horses, but when she does, she places them fantastically well, which is why I think this will be the target. He won this race last year for Marcus 74. Now he's gone up in the weight since, but as I say with Vafortino, he's improved in the interim. This year's renewal only features 10 horses. Last year was 19. It was far more competitive. I think this year, Mr. Bluebird is the clear standout. And as I say with Vafortino, course form is super important at Ascot. His recent spin at Musselburgh will definitely have him primed for the race. I think he'll prove very hard to beat. Mr. Bluebird in the 4:55 at Ascot.
Nice. Out of interest, what price do you think Creative Falls will be in this 4-runner race? I mean, Comanche Falls is giving him weight as well. I mean, it should be... It's going to be extremely short, is he not?
Yeah, well, last time at Newmarket, he went off, I think, 8-13 in the race that also involved Comanche Falls and another of the reopposing horses on Saturday. I think maybe you can get 4-6. 4-5 will be value, even be value. I know it's very short, but here's a horse that I think is a banker. If you're doing accumulators or you're doing combination bets on Saturday, whack him in there. You can treat Mr. Bluebird as my equal nap if you want, but Creative Force is the banker.
Okay, yeah. 4-runner field. Interesting seeing him back in a conditions race. I didn't think he ran badly as a sort of a pipe opener. So busy, as you said, last season for Charlie Appleby and James Dorr on board. Okay, right. Thanks for that. I've got a couple of horses that are running this weekend that just sort of note, but out of interest. Now, William Haggis has had for his standards, a very quiet time, but I was pleased to see him have a winner yesterday at Chester. He had spent, I think, 5 days without runners at all. I have a suspicion that things just haven't been quite rosy, and they're just sort of working out if things are right there. So I'm sure that they would been pleased to see a winner back at Chester. He's got some important runners at the rest of the week at Chester. And Alma Beer runs again this weekend at Haydock. Now, I'm interested to see him coming back and trip. I thought he looked like, to me, when he won it at Leicester, and it was the day that TC put him up as well on this podcast, so he looked like a horse that would benefit for further. But they've come back to 7 furlongs. The reason why, even though the trip is a little bit strange to me, I don't think it's the most competitive of races for him, considering what he looks like he can achieve and the rate that he's going. And I think it's just another well-placed decision from his trainer to give him more racecourse experience, because I think he was just a little bit all at sea in the Lincoln. But he's clearly a horse with plenty of talent. So I do like Alma Beer at Haydock. Just confirm the time for you. That's the 3:50 at Haydock on Saturday. That's my nap. And then next best is a 2-year-old. I've been reliably informed that Ocean Runner is at pretty much at the top of the pecking list of the Charlie Appleby 2-year-olds. And the Blue Points, as we know, as Ross, you'll know, you're keeping a very good eye on the juveniles. The Blue Points are doing no wrong. This Blue Point called Ocean Runner cost 625,000 guineas at the Breeze Ups only a couple of weeks ago. They are rolling the dice pretty quickly with him, probably because they see him as a Royal Ascot type, and he's running at Ascot in the 3:10 with Harry Davis on board, with all their jockeys in different parts of the country, but Harry Davis gets the leg up on Ocean Runner. So looking forward to seeing how he goes. Charlie Appleby had another Blue Point win at Newmarket on the weekend. So that is that. Looking forward to seeing how the rate of form continues after a successful weekend last weekend. That draw bias I'm going to be conscious of at Ascot. We'll see how that materialises. TC, good luck. Ross, good luck. A reminder that new SBK customers can get £20 in free bets by betting £10. T's and C's always apply. Remember to subscribe, follow our podcast channel, listen to us on our YouTube channel. You can watch us there as well. A big nod to the ambassador content, because George Bowie's stable tour, definitely worth following. If you were able to have followed it before last week, you would have noticed Soprano as one of his horses to follow, one of his juveniles, and she duly obliged and looks like a lovely filly for them to go to war with. So definitely worth making the most of that ambassador content. But for us, thank you for joining us, and we'll speak to you next week.